Good evening. I'd like to call the March 4th, 2024 Board of Commissioners work session to order. Tonight, Officer Michael Romanovich will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Ms. Logan, will you do the roll call?
Catherine Carter, President.
Here.
Rebecca Moody, Vice President.
Here.
Denise Hall, Commissioner.
Here.
Ms. McNaney, Commissioner.
Here.
Gregory Mole, Commissioner.
Here.
Megan Weaver, Assistant Township Manager.
Here.
Lauren Gallagher, Township Solicitor.
Here.
Nicholas Cross, Township Engineer.
Here.
David Duffy, Chief of Police.
Here.
Nathan Crittenden, Finance Director.
Here.
Van Reeker, Zoning Officer.
Here.
And it is noted that Sandra Zadell, Township Manager, is absent.
Thank you. Ms. Gallagher, were there any executive sessions this evening?
Nothing to summarize this evening.
Thank you. I will now turn the meeting over to Chief Duffy.
There we go. Thank you very much. So this is, for now, our last of our beginning of the year commendations. And for that, I would like to call up Officer Michael Romanowitz. Officer Romanowitz is being given an official commendation for his work as field training officer, lead field training officer, and for all his help with recruitment. Before the meeting, I did a rough tally of the collective years of service of Upper Gwynedd police officers. And combined, we have about 300 years of police experience in this department. Over the holidays, just as it is in any workplace and police department, the people with time and rank tend to take off. So the collective years of experience in that work week was about 25. But we got through that week and all the calls were handled appropriately without any difficulty because of the investment that Officer Romanowitz puts into this program and leads his other field training officers in making sure that before they're released from the program, Upper Gwynedd officers are ready to handle just about anything that can be thrown at them, which he's done a great job at. So I'll read the commendation here. Whereas in recent years, recruiting and hiring of police departments has become a significant challenge. Agencies nationwide have been impacted and most report having a third or less than the usual number of qualified applicants seeking to join the law enforcement profession. Whereas, as he has done before, Officer Michael Romanowitz volunteered to lead our recruitment efforts. He visited several police academies and worked with our public information officers to encourage more applicants to apply through active engagement. As a result, we rehired 3 very good candidates in 2023. Whereas hiring 3 people at once required significant planning and coordination to have them field trained simultaneously. Officer Romanowitz handled these logistics skillfully and was able to augment the training as appropriate for each officer's progress through the program. All 3 officers succeeded and were graduated to independent patrol in a timely manner. Therefore, Officer Michael Romanowitz is recognized and commended for performing a service above and beyond the call of duty and improving the reputation of the department and the quality of our personnel. Very much so.
Thank you, Chief Duffy.
Quick side note, since it was very recent, we did have a person who was going through some emotional distress recently in the township who had armed themselves with a machete, was displaying it in public. Officer Romanowitz was the lead officer on that call. He took decisive action to safely take that person into custody despite a violent struggle. And he did an excellent job with that, one of many jobs he should be commended for. So thank you again for your time.
Thank you. Number 6, on March 11th, the Board of Commissioners will recognize Jane Blakeledge on her retirement from the North Wales Area Library.
public comments and concerns. Next, we'll have the public comments. Please state your name and if you're a resident or non-resident when you come to the mic. Please make sure the mic is on, touch the button. Thank you for respecting the 5-minute rule and practicing decorum. Our goal is always to give you the most complete and correct answers to your questions from our staff who are experts in their areas. For that reason, you have the option of enclosing your email address in the registry if you would like us to reach out to you during the week with a full answer to your questions. In the past, we've had some residents concerned that if we answer any question offline, so to speak, the residents would then wanted to hear the answer publicly would be left out. So we will continue to share any answers to questions that were posed publicly but were answered privately at the following public meeting. First up for the public comment this evening is Peter Habib.
Good evening. Hi, my name is Peter Habib, and I'm a resident of the township. I'm sure all of you as elected officials have had, before you were elected, gone out and canvassed to get signatures for your slot on the board, to get to become elected, so that way you could show up to vote. Recently, while I was out canvassing for someone to get nominated for an elected office, I was approached by 2 police officers and was told that I was soliciting, which I had to argue with the police officers and let them know that what I was doing was legal and was in the boundary of what should be done. So they kept saying, no, what you're doing, they thought in their mind was soliciting. In fact, one of the officers brought up the ordinance, which is 137-1, and the definition for soliciting says, the seeking or taking of contracts, which I wasn't doing, or order of any goods, wares, or merchandise for future delivery, which I wasn't doing, for services or home or property improvements of any description, again, what I wasn't doing, for subscriptions or contributions, or for seeking appointment to accomplish said activities, which I wasn't doing, upon any of the streets or sidewalks or from the house to house within the township of Upper Gwynedd. So I had to argue with them to let them know what I was doing was legal and needed to be done. So I would like the ordinance to be updated to allow people who are out canvassing for a political office to be noted as an exempted person. It's not noted in there. In fact, in your no-knock register, it does state, please note that non-profits, including but not limited to government, political, or religious personnel or organizations are exempt from the no-knock. So I'm requesting that you update this and that the officers get trained, so that way when they see someone out canvassing for names, so that way someone can get on the ballot, they can see, oh, you've got your list there. I can see who is running for an office and what you're doing. And so that way all that they would say is, thank you, have a good day. And the individual doesn't have to fight with them to get this done, because this could look like some kind of election intimidation. Thank you.
Is there anyone that did not sign up that would like to speak this evening? Sign in when you get or out.
William Jackson, I'm a Upper Gwynedd resident.
William Jackson.
Yes. I'm here as a resident, also as a member of the Bike North Penn group. So a couple of these things I'm going to say as kind of Bike North Penn, a couple of them as an individual resident of Upper Gwynedd, and they're all kind of linked together. First off, the convenience store zoning definition. I was not at the last meeting, but I did read through the language change and saw that part of that definition that exists includes a definition of parking for convenience stores. Now, I understand that this definition update was primarily to accommodate the Wawa at Sumneytown and Valley Forge Road and the gas station complexities of that. But maybe not for this update, but we would like to suggest as a group, Bike North Penn, that definition at some point be updated to include bike parking. There are details in there for the number of parking slots per square footage for cars, but there's nothing in there that would accommodate if someone wanted to ride their bike to a convenience store location. I have been in touch with the Bicycle Coalition of Philadelphia. They provided me with the language from another township in Montgomery County that has that in their ordinance. So I'm going to supply that as an example for consideration. It does make accommodations for things like strip malls where you have more than one convenience type store where you don't have to have a slot for every store. You just need to have cumulative parking for all locations. And we are going to be suggesting this for all the municipalities in North Penn. So it's not just a suggestion for Upper Gwynedd. That's one point. Second point is Church Road. As a resident, the residents of Upper Gwynedd deserve a completely connected sidewalk on Church Road from Sumneytown to where the sidewalks exist up near the SEPTA train station. I noted in a couple places in the agenda for tonight, there's, and I forget, I was making notes, but there's the location that may be under consideration for the new bus garage for North Penn. I would like to suggest that any approval of that or anything else that goes into that site, because I think there was maybe one other proposal for that site that may now be deferred for the bus location, that sidewalks be included in the approval of that zoning approval or change for that address. I also know that there was I believe it's the property further down from that, maybe that's where the cell phone tower is, had something that was approved earlier. I missed that. I would have been asking, here asking for sidewalks on the approval for that also. But I'll be back as much as I can until I get a connected sidewalk on that stretch of road. West Point Railroad Crossing. The metal plating on there has been in disrepair since I've lived here in that part of the township. There's two big gaps in that metal plating. That railroad is owned by SEPTA. I don't know who they contract to maintain it, but they have on occasion tried to pour hot mix down into it. So whoever is responsible for maintaining that railroad crossing knows there's a problem, but it really just needs to be replaced and fixed. It's a hazard to tires, and I go over that railroad track as a resident at least once a day in both directions. As a cyclist, or if I was a motorcyclist, if someone hit that and we're not expecting it, it could cause serious injury. So that's one thing that's wrong with that intersection. There also on the northbound side, there's a reoccurring pothole that is now starting to form. That happens every year about this time. They fill it in and it comes back. But again, as a cyclist or a motorcyclist, you're moving to the right, maybe to avoid the gap in the metal, and you're going to hit that pothole. And then even to the right of that, where the turn lane starts on the northbound side of the railroad track, it crumbles every year, and then they fix it, and it crumbles every year, and they fix it. It's time that railroad just be redone. So I, as a resident, am going to be formulating a proposal to this body, to the county, to SEPTA, to my state representative until that gets on someone's agenda to get fixed. And I understand that railroads are complicated and things take time, but it's really been an ongoing problem. And if I'm running out of time, tell me. Stony Creek Park. I was riding down through there Sunday morning. I was riding to Hatfield on my bike. And right there at the point where Stony Creek Park ends in that parking lot, and I believe it becomes Upper Gwynedd, I passed a woman on a bike who, to me, didn't look like a recreational biker. She looked like a transportation biker. I also passed a group of runners who were coming out of there and then wrapping around onto the street. And even though I know we're some time away of getting the trail completed through there, there's a chain across the gravel path that goes into Stony Creek, which you have to go around the grass to get around, and it's been quite muddy. It typically is quite muddy there. I think it's time for us to consider putting up some sort of bollard system that will prevent people from driving through there, but allowing people to pass through without having to go around that chain link fence that is the current deterrent from driving through there. It's time just to create a formal entrance so people can get through there without having to cut through the mud around through the side of that entry point. And my last point is Liberty Bell Trail consideration. I was at the park assessment meeting, and we looked at the updated map that was issued for the trail, and contradicting my understanding of the Baker study, 3 years ago, that the trail was going to run up Dickerson. That map shows it sort of winding around up along the creek between Sumneytown and Wissahickon Avenue. And I've lost sleep over this because I really feel as a taxpayer, it's a bad use of money. That map implies there's going to be several bridge creek crossings, which is a bad use of money in my opinion. So I would just like to ask for consideration just to take it up Dickerson Road as I thought it was originally going to happen. And Dickerson's wide and it's mostly quiet except for the mornings when the Merck people are coming in. So just make it a striped bike lane. It's the cheapest, fastest way. It still takes you back past the Dodsworth Preserve, which I know people wanted to try and achieve back when we were talking around Baker. And you won't have the flooding issues that I think you're going to have to run along the creek. It'll be easier access for people to get in and out of there. And it's the cheapest, fastest way to get that segment of the trail done. Thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Get all of that, Deanna?
Yeah.
I'll now turn the meeting over to our Assistant Township Manager, Megan Weaver.
Thank you, President Carter. On the agenda for next week, we will have a hearing for ordinance 2024-01. This ordinance was discussed at last month's meeting when we did the authorization to advertise. And as discussed, this ordinance is essentially updating our zoning ordinance to give a more modern definition of convenience store and also associated related parking. So we'll have a hearing on that at next week's meeting. And then for departmental reports, we have Mr. Reeker here to give the planning and zoning report.
Thank you, everyone, and Ms. Assistant Manager. I did want to comment on the sidewalks. So good points, and as best we can, the Planning Commission and staff are grabbing new properties when they come in and requesting the sidewalks be installed. For Church Road, we have two that you haven't seen that are in play. 212.
Van.
212. Can I not be heard? Oh, boy. Usually I could be heard down the street. 212, which is the storage that will have a sidewalk when the new building is completed, maybe in 6 to 8 months. And 203, which was the old Triumph property, which you had referred to, may come back, and I'll discuss it briefly. For the bus garage consideration, we'll have a sidewalk frontage as well. So we're trying to gain on it. We're a little, bite at a time, but I think we're making pretty good headway. Okay, thank you for that. So back to my report. Oh, and I know that it wasn't meant to be controlling, but the ordinance amendment that is under that will be discussed and heard next week is not to accommodate Wawa. Wawa's approved. It's a language, kind of an update, a housekeeping that the solicitor and I thought would be appropriate relative to observing some good plans when we saw them that were not in our ordinance, but some considerations we thought should be relative to parking, setbacks, a better definition. So it's really sort of to reflect on housekeeping update. Maybe I'll defer to but we have actually, at the behest of Liz and Denise, have been looking at, we don't need an ordinance to ask the applicant to provide for, I assume by that you mean the bike racks, the bike parking? I mean, we've already asked for those. It's my understanding that they will accommodate those. I think actually they're on the plan. Don't quote me, but I thought I saw them. And we've also asked them to consider, they need approval from Wawa, EV charging. So both of those have come from citizens who've come here, spoken up about them, and we have those to be considered as a part of that plan. However, I would welcome the language, anything that can help our ordinance do a better job that way, we can certainly add to next time. Okay. My report, Merck Building 41, we had maybe discussed previously, that's being reviewed by Nick. It's in its final review. Upon that approval, there'll be a new building constructed where an old building was demolished on the Merck property. 203 Church Road, we just spoke about that property, the old Triumph site. The prior submission has been put on hold, and the North Penn School District has requested our consideration of a revised plan for the bus garage on that site. It's still in its concept phase. That could become a real plan in the next couple of weeks. Are there questions on that one? That's sort of a new topic that has come up. Okay. Zoning text amendment, you've heard about that. That will be heard at the next meeting. 2 new ZHB applications, 848 Girard Avenue, pretty routine, 1-story addition into a side yard to accommodate a growing household or the request to live on the first floor. Not unusual. We see that kind of application fairly regularly. Something new, ZHB 24-03. This is the 247 is the new shopping center, Royal Farms, for lack of a better. So, and as it turns out, the applicant is here if you have questions about it, but it'll be considered as a special exception for an educational use, kids first swim pool. And what they do is they teach children of all age groups and adults swimming, different kinds of swimming, different categories of being able to swim. Small groups come, be a shallow pool. So it's called a school. It's scheduled for March 26th. It's kind of unique. I've only seen one other. There are numbers of these, but I've only seen one other close by in East Norriton. And that will be treated as a special exception, which you'll remember is a permitted use subject to extra examination by the zoning hearing board, usually about parking or density of use or that kind of thing. We have asked the applicant to provide, when they come in 2 weeks, for the maybe a parking update, indicate how the school can be accommodated by the addition, the existing parking arrangements on site. Do any of you have any questions about this particular use, Kids First, because the applicant happens to be here tonight? And do you?
I guess my only question is, they're going to be almost like catty corner, the preschool, so their parking is going to
Right.
be running.
Montessori. And I neglected to mention, and that's a good question that perhaps Todd or Bernadette can take up. I think they arrive in small groups. Their biggest use, I think, is weekends, based on what I've seen and observed in East Norriton. They can speak for themselves. They're going to have to make it part of the record when they come to the zoning hearing board. However, the proposal is to use the balance of Building B for the swim school. I didn't make that clear. So there are 4 uses that are approved, 3 of which are occupied in Building B. That's the building that's perpendicular to Sudley Town Pike. It's so it's the Capriotti's on the end cap they call it, and then next to that there's a barber shop. There'll be a Rolly Rice, maybe in reverse. Open, maybe 8 or 10 open slots, which were reserved for future use. And at the other far end, again closest to Montessori, will be a Smile for Kids, and that's taking up 2 or 3 suites. So in the middle, the vacant part of that building is about 7,000 square feet. That is the proposal for the Kids First school, swim school. So that would complete the use basically of the center. Now, if you have an additional question about parking, there's probably someone here tonight who could better answer that better than I can.
Ben, I have a question. I guess just with regard to the educational component, will it be used exclusively for educational component? And you said various degrees of swimming. Is that swimming instruction, teaching kids how to save themselves or swim if they fall in the water, like we do at North Penn, the Norgwin pool? Is it learning different strokes to facilitate more competitiveness on a swim team? What exactly is the educational component of the program?
And the Red Cross certification. So it's my understanding they do all those things. So it's considered a school. They have a curricula. You decide which of your youngest children, middle-aged children, older children, or adults need to be accommodated. They have instruction. They come in groups of, I think, between typically 5 and 6 students at a time. And it's basically educational. It's a pool, but their purpose is to teach swimming. Now, you want to add to that? Is there anything you could add to that answer, Tyler or Bernadette? Why don't you come up and be heard on the, here,
Come on up.
you have to be heard.
Bernadette Kearney from Hamburg, Rubin, and Tyler Arsenal. Am I saying that right?
Tyler Arsenault with retail sites.
Retail sites. So in reference to the parking question, we thought this was a good tenet because Guidepost, the Montessori school, is closed on the weekends, and the operator's prime time for this is Saturday and Sunday, about 9 to noon. So Guidepost won't be there during the swim school's prime time. As for, I think the question was in reference to the uses. Tyler has spoken to the operator who also operates the one in East Norton. She has 4 of them, and she has the one, it's called the Plymouth Meeting Swim First, but it's actually in East Norton. So I think Tyler can respond to that as to the classes and things of that nature.
Yeah, I think what Van said is pretty accurate. It's kind of a combination of all of those, the sort of life-saving techniques, but then also I guess some more sort of towards like the swimming athletics and that type of thing. But they also offer like mommy and me classes where you can swim with the moms, and that's just sort of another option they have.
Do you know if they do any recreational component to it? I know that some pools or some areas may, for example, rent out for birthday parties, celebrations of that nature. Would it be used for exclusively educational, or would there be a recreational component to it as well along those lines?
Yeah, I think Van had actually Van had gone to the East Norton site, and in response to a letter from another attorney in the office, he noticed that yes, they do sometimes have birthday parties. I think usually on the weekends, and that he would consider that an accessory recreational use to the school. So yeah, yes.
So, Van, so the exception, that would be a part of the exception? I'm getting a little confused about.
It's as I was taught a long time ago, special exceptions are neither special nor exceptional, but it is a term that the municipality's planning code is used. And so it's just simply a different category. It's not unlike a conditional use hearing that the commissioners hear. So there are some uses that are kind of contemplated to need an extra look. So for conditional uses, it's usually a plan-specific kind of an application, a cluster approach, something where you might get extra open space for like a density trade-off. That's a conditional use. So it's in the ordinance as a permitted use, conditional use. The commissioners hear it. Special exceptions, same kind of concept, but it's a consideration by the zoning hearing board. So it becomes a record, not unlike a record that would be made here. And it would require the applicants. We have many kinds of special exceptions. This just happens to be one of them. So in the C commercial district educational uses, because I think of the uncertainty of how intense could they be, how big would they be, would there be weekend parties, would there be, how many students are considered special exceptions. The Montessori school was a special exception. So the Montessori school became approved. Bernadette was representative. That's building A. That building has been approved. So this is half of building B. And it is close. It's a close call for recreation. But when you go on site, I went over there and actually talked to the manager at East Norriton. Bernadette's right. They call it Plymouth Meeting, but it's in East Norriton. And when you go on site, it's their kids first swim school is all about learning how to swim, safe ways to swim, how to teach a toddler what to do with young children if something should happen, how to obtain your Red Cross cert for lifeguarding. So it's really an educational process that uses a pool as their learning table. So it's predetermined. The ordinance spells out what a special exception is to be. It's in the code, and it's either it comes under these categories of special exception. And if so, then you're directed by definition to the zoning hearing board to come in and prove that you qualify under the definition of, in this case, educational use. They'll do that, I think. And then prove that they can manage their parking and any other questions that might come up at the hearing by either the board, should you elect to send a solicitor to attend, or by folks that come in and attend here. Okay, thank you for answering this question. So was there anything else from anybody while they're up here?
At this time.
Okay, thanks guys. So I think that's it for me. Sorry it takes so long, but it does happen once in a while.
Thank you, Van. And I will now turn it over to Nick Cross for the engineering report.
Thank you, Megan. I just wanted to highlight some of the projects we're going to be kicking off in the next few months. 3 of them here are going to be, we're requesting authorization to award at next week's meeting, and 1 we're going to be requesting authorization to advertise. For the 2024 road program, we recently opened up bids. We're going to be repaving and performing ADA improvements within the Stony Creek development, ADA and curbing improvements along Church Road between Sumney Town Pike and the township limit, repaving and ADA improvements along Amity Lane, and the bike lane striping on South Broad Street. For the West Prospect Drainage Improvements Project, we opened up the bids for that last week as well. That will be for new storm infrastructure along West Prospect Avenue between Pennsylvania Ave and Fairview Ave. The North Wales Trail Crossing, we opened those bids up a few weeks ago. This will be for a new pedestrian crossing infrastructure at the intersection in North Wales Road and Moyer Boulevard, connecting the Green Ribbon Trail. And then finally, this is the project we'll be requesting authorization to advertise for. We've been talking about it for a very long time now. The Haynes Run Stream Bank Restoration Project, which will be stream bank restoration for over half a mile of stream bank along Haynes Run near the confluence of the Wissahickon Creek and the wastewater treatment plant. So if anybody has any questions on those, I'd be happy to answer them, but they'll also be popping up on the agenda, so I'd be happy to answer them then too.
Thank you, Nick. Next week on the agenda under President Carter section, we'll have the approval of the departmental reports, which are all linked within the packet that you can see here. And I would ask that these be included in the consent agenda for next week. We also have the Board of Commissioner meeting minutes for February 5th and February 12th. I would also ask that these be included on the consent agenda for next week. And then I will now turn the meeting over to President Carter for a decision item.
Thank you, Megan. We have a motion to approve the proclamation for Women's History Month, March being Women's History Month. Before we go through with that, I want to read the wonderful proclamation that Deanna prepared for us. Whereas in 1980, President Jimmy Carter issued a proclamation declaring National Women's History Week, stating, "From the first settlers who came to our shores, from the first American Indian families who befriended them, men and women have worked together to build this nation. Too often the women were unsung and sometimes their contributions went unnoticed. And whereas Congress provided bipartisan support for the following year for the week-long celebration, and in 1987 extended the week to Women's History Month, and the United States of America has recognized March as Women's History Month since 1988. And whereas the 2024 theme for Women's History Month is Women Who Advocate for Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion. This theme recognizes women throughout the country who understand that for a positive future, we need to eliminate bias and discrimination entirely from our lives and institutions. And whereas Women's History Month honors women of every race, status, and ethnicity who have challenged the social and legal structures that have kept women's labor unappreciated and unrepresented throughout history, to establish an equal role for women, ensuring the appreciation and value of equitable labor for future generations. And whereas American women have been leaders not only in securing their own rights of suffrage and equal opportunity, but also at the forefront of every major progressive social change movement in history, paving the way for future generations to enjoy the unalienable rights, duties, and responsibilities afforded equally to all citizens of the United States of America. Whereas each woman is extraordinary in her own way, proving that women working inside the home or outside in academia, science, technology, business, labor, military service, governance, and more maintain a critical role in every sphere of society. And now, therefore, be it proclaimed that the Board of Commissioners do hereby designate the month of March as Women's History Month in Upper Gwynedd Township to honor every women everywhere for their outstanding achievements and invaluable contributions to society. Proclaimed this 4th day of March, 2024 by the Board of Commissioners. So we have a motion to approve the proclamation for Women's History Month.
I'll make a motion.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second?
We have a motion and we have a second. Do we have any board comments? Any public comments? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes unanimously. I will now turn the meeting over to our Assistant Township Manager, Megan Weaver.
Thank you, President Carter. Next week, we will also have the approval of payment number 3 to Shipsy Electric in the amount of $24,980.30. And this is for electrical work for our facilities upgrade project. And I would also ask this to be included on the consent agenda. The next item, which I'll briefly explain prior to turning it over to President Carter, it is a decision item for this evening. We're seeking a motion to approve change order number 1 to SB Conrad, and this is also for our facilities upgrade project, and it's in the amount of $22,782.44. During the design, we left out these 2 items, so we're now looking to include them as a change order. The first is to upgrade the doors that go outside here to the atrium, over to the administration side, and over to the police side. So we are looking to add a key fob locking system that would make sure that our facility is fully secured by adding that. And the cost of this new apparatus would be $12,038.13. There is a second section to this change order, and that would be for the sound panels that are located over in our open office area. We had initially planned to reuse the panels that we currently have. However, after we did all of the paint upgrades, it was very clear that they looked dingy. They were stained from the windows previously leaking onto them. So we are looking to go forward with replacing those as well. And the cost for that portion is $10,744.31. And if there aren't any questions, I'll turn it over to President Carter.
So we have a motion to approve change order number 1 to SB Conrad for the facilities upgrade project in the amount of $22,782.44.
Motion.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Do we have any board comments? Any public comments? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Back over to you.
Thank you, President Carter. We also have a placeholder on the agenda for payment number 4 to SB Conrad. This is also in relation to our facilities upgrade project, and we'll have detail on that payment for next week's agenda.
We don't have the amount for that.
We do not have the amount yet. And then in Commissioner Moody's section, we have a waiver request from Merck, and this is to allow work on select Sunday hours as needed from April 1st to June 30th. It will be select Sundays only, and it would be to utilize a hydraulic crane to install pipe rack assemblies and structural steel on 2 of their buildings. It would be Building 12 and Building 29. They have ensured that this project is going to be closely monitored. That way it will, there'll be less noise mitigation. They don't anticipate having any concerns. And I would ask for this to also be included in the consent agenda. The next 2 agenda items in this section are related to escrow releases for land development. The first one is for escrow release number 7 for Roosevelt Court in the amount of $21,073.50, and escrow release number 4 for Wheatley Walk in the amount of $66,270, and this is for work associated with them completing with their project and us drawing down on their escrow. The next item on this agenda will be the approval of Resolution 08-2024, and this is for preliminary final land development for Merck Building 41. And you'll recognize this one because it was on the agenda for January 8th. The board did grant approval for their preliminary final land development. They are coming back and requesting an amendment. The only thing that they've changed to the plan is in their square footage to their building design. Nothing else has changed in terms of stormwater or anything like that. They will be coming. We believed they were coming tonight, but they will be coming for March 11th to give that presentation. So that will be on for next week's agenda for their presentation and consideration for approval. Does anybody have any questions so far? Okay, and then in Commissioner Hall's section, I will turn it over to her for an announcement.
Thank you, Megan. I just wanted to take a minute and I wanted to thank our Upper Gwynedd Township Fire Department for inviting the Board of Commissioners to their annual banquet this past weekend. President Carter, Commissioner Moody, and myself and our husbands had a wonderful time this past Saturday night. Thank you to all of 80 for the opportunity to celebrate their many accomplishments this year and to highlight those who went above and beyond on their team. And I also wanted to share that this year, both Upper Gwynedd Fire Department and the North Penn Fire Department awarded their Firefighter of the Year distinction to women. Upper Gwynedd Township presented the Firefighter of the Year in memory of John R. Bryant to Audrey Kearney, who, by the way, is a senior in high school. And North Penn Volunteer Fire Company recently presented their Firefighter of the Year to Caitlin Matthey. So I'm always thrilled to highlight the accomplishments of women in our community, but I'm especially excited to do so during Women's History Month. Thanks, Megan.
Thank you, Commissioner Hall. Under Commissioner Hall's section, we will have the approval of another police vehicle. This year's police department budget did include replacing 2 patrol cars, one that was carried over from last year and one that was slated for this year. As you'll remember, the board did approve the purchase of 1 vehicle back in February, and this would be for the second vehicle. It's a 2023 Ford Police Interceptor in the amount of $41,570. And then in Commissioner Moll's section, I'll turn the meeting over to Commissioner Moll for an announcement.
Thank you, Megan. As a father and as any community member, resident can attest to, the Parks and Recreation Department truly is one of the gems of our great community through the many offerings and opportunities that we have here. And that doesn't happen by accident. We owe a great debt to our director of Park and Recreation, and that's Ms. Sarah Priebus. And I wanted to congratulate her this evening because she's recently sat for and passed an examination to become a certified Park and Recreation professional. So I wanted to take a moment and thank you, Sarah, for all you do for this township, all the opportunities you provide my children, all the children of the Upper Gwynedd, as well as all the residents here, and all the hard work and effort that you put into it. Congratulations on achieving your test. Thank you from the bottom of our hearts.
Thank you, Commissioner Moll. Under Commissioner Moll's section, we'll also have the approval of the Laurel 5K race, which this will take place on October 20th from 7 a.m. to 12 p.m. Our police department and our Parks and Recreation department had no issues with this request. The race directors have agreed to notify the residents that live along that course before the race date. They are anticipating about 250 participants in the race. And included in the packet here, you'll see that we do have the race route posted. You'll see that they go down Parkside Place, down Clover Drive, Shear Street, along Old Church Road, down West Prospect Avenue, up Winster Way, through Center Street, and ending at Parkside Place. So that's linked in the packet as well. Next, we have the approval to authorize the bidding for Haynes Run. This is really exciting. Finally, as Nick mentioned, that we'll be going out to bid for this project. And right here, I just want to go over a highlight that we have that Remington and Vernick engineers had prepared. It's an interactive story map that they prepared for this project that you can find on our website. So if you go through it, it explains what caused the damage. It highlights what happened to our wastewater treatment plant, how it was subject to severe flooding and damages that resulted in a $3 million insurance claim for us. And then it goes into why it's so important for preventing further erosion, managing flood risk, preserving ecosystems, and protecting water quality. And you can see they have some nice pictures here. It's not necessarily, is it before and after, Nick, those photos? And then we have what happens when stream bank erodes. It just gives you a lot of information for the importance of this project. And then this is what it currently looks like right now. You can see that the red area is the sediment buildup that we currently have, and then the blockages that it creates because it is there. And then it goes into what the post-restoration will look like. It's nice to see the visual to go along with it. And then one of the most exciting aspects of this project is the amount of grant funding that the township has secured. You can see here all of the grant funding that we secured, and it was a total of $947,033. But this also does not include an additional grant that we received from the WQIP. We also received an additional $600,000. So all of the grant funding that we have received pays for almost all of the project. There's just a little bit of funding that the township would have to contribute. And then here's an example of the Whites Road Park, their stream bank restoration project. Here you can see that visual. And this is on our website as well if anybody at home would like to take a look at it. Does anybody have any questions on that? The next agenda item is also for the Haynes Run. This is for the approval of Resolution 07-2024, and this is closing out the Community Conservation Partnerships Grant. This is a DCNR grant that we had received for $90,000, and this was for engineering and design for our H&H study that was done for the project. So this resolution is certifying that we have completed all of the work in accordance with that grant. Next on the agenda, we have the approval of the bid award for the West Prospect Drainage Improvement Project, and Nick went over that a little bit. We'll have the bid tabulation and the award finalized for the board's meeting next Monday. That'll get included and linked in the packet for next week. Does anybody have any questions so far? Next on the agenda, we will have the approval of the bid award for the North Wales Trail Crossing that will be awarded to Armour & Sons Electric in the amount of $61,194. And as you'll recall, in 2021, we were awarded the Monco 2040 grant. And this was for the pedestrian safety project to install the flashing stop signs and then flashing crosswalk signs around some key locations in the township. Previously, we did put this out to bid for the crosswalk signals at Moyer Boulevard and North Wales Road earlier this year. Unfortunately, we did have to reject that first bid award because it did come in over budget. Luckily, the second time that we did put this out to bid, it came in at the expected budget amount, which is the $61,194. Next on the agenda, we have the approval award for the 2024 Liquid Fuels Program to J.D. Morrissey in the amount of $829,311.40. This was exciting, this bidding for this project, because we did get 10 bids, which is a lot more responsive than we've ever received any in the past. So it's a kudos to Sandra, RVE, and our Public Works Department for getting that bid out so early to make it competitive. So we will be asking for the authorization to award that bid to J.D. Morrissey. And they did actually do a road program this past year. And this would be for the base bid, which is Stony Creek to mill and overlay that area, along with doing the ADA improvements. It also includes bid alternate number 1, which is to mill and overlay Church Road, bid alternate number 2, which is to do Amity Lane, and then bid alternate number 3, which is the South Broad Street bike lane striping. And to do all of this work, to do the base bid and all 3 of the alternate bids, that's what came in at $829,311.40. So we structure our bids this way. That way it gives us the flexibility for choosing the scope and design of our project, just to make sure that it does come within budget. So we budgeted in this year's budget $756,000 to do this road work. And we also had $60,000 for contingency, just in case if the asphalt pricing did come in higher than we had expected. So we had budgeted altogether with those two, $816,000. So the work that we are proposing to do, doing the base bid and all 3 alternate bids, it is slightly over budget at $13,311.40. However, we did have Nick and his team look at what our past years have been. So historically, in the past 3 years, due to all the contingencies that we do put in there, we have a change order at the end of the project that it usually comes in the positive. So in 2023, we had $233,000 and some change. We came in under budget. In 2022, we came in under budget $184,000 and some change. And in 2021, we came in under budget at $124,000 and again some change. So we did discuss this with our Public Works Director and Nick, and we felt comfortable still awarding this, knowing that it will be slightly over budget. But at the end, we are confident that with the positive change orders that we've had in the past, that it will come in still under budget. Does anybody have any questions on that one? I know I just said a lot on that one.
Can you go back a little bit and explain how you can separate it, like, so that Public Works can choose not to do one of them?
Yes.
Or can you explain that a little bit?
Sure. So we put out the bid so that there's multiple options. So when the bidder is bidding on the project, they bid the amount that they believe it's going to be for the base bid, which will be, in here, it was just to do the Stony Creek Mill and Overlay and the ADA improvements. But then there's also alternate bids that they will let us know what the price would be if we did decide to go with those. So it gives them options. Well, it
So
gives
they know
us,
from the beginning that they could do all of those options.
yes, they could either do all of the options, or let's say something came in significantly over budget, it would give the board the option to just go with the base bid. Let's just say if it's way over budget, or it could give the board the option to do the base bid and alternate 1 and 2, but leave out option number 3. Nick, I don't know if I missed anything there, if you want to add in.
Yeah, no, that's pretty much how it goes. Like, for example, for this year's project, JDM was actually not the low bidder for the base bid. But when we packaged in all of the alternate bids with the base bid, they became the low bidder because their alternate bids were bid less than the base bid low bidder. Sorry, that might have made things way more confusing. So it costs less money. That's the
Okay.
Yeah.
Bottom line.
Thank you, Nick. Does anybody else have any questions? The next item in this section would be to approve the request for exemption for our Upper Gwynedd Township Parks and Recreation Department for the Unity for Kindness Day event. And we do have our Parks and Recreation Director, Sarah Previs, here, and she's going to be briefly explaining this request to the board tonight.
There we go. It's nice to be here. I'm usually not here. So this event, Unity for Kindness, was a brainchild of Liz and Denise 4 years ago, I guess. And when it started, it was 3 weeks in the planning, and it was great. We didn't have a lot of participation because they only had 3 weeks to get it, to where it needs to be. The following year, we made a board. We had this thing. It was big. We had probably 1,000 people, would you say there? Maybe 800, 1,000 people there the second year. Last year was the third year. Last year we had to cancel because it poured that day. So this year's the fourth year. So I love new things. I love new adventures. And this year I wanted to bring McAllister's Inn, who is a brewery here in North Wales, and bring in some beer and wine for this event. We thought it would be a great pilot program. We had a preliminary meeting with the chief. We discussed things, safety and stuff like that. And we thought it'd be a good pilot program. The event is 11 to 3. It's not a late night event or anything like that. So we're requesting you to grant this exemption, and it is Article 134-1D-11, and it's the exemption to allow us as the township to have alcohol in the park for that event only. Any questions?
Yeah. So I understand it's 11 to 3.
Mhm.
Who's responsible for people who might drink too much?
That's a great question. So in my past jobs and my past things that I've done, you can go either way with alcohol. You can bring it in and you can run it yourself, and we would make profit on it and things like that. We don't want to do that. We are giving McAllister's full reign. They have their what's called tip certified bartenders and things like that. So it would keep it. People checking cards would be legal, to check. Their bartenders would have this tip certification, which means they know not to serve over drunk people per se. So they know, they have all that. It doesn't lie within the township. We are asking them to put us as on their insurance. We're asking them to put Upper Gwynedd Township on their insurance for that event.
If I can add, we've been working with Sarah. There's going to be a full indemnity agreement that they're going to sign. So they're going to have to make sure they have all their proper licensing from the Pennsylvania Liquor Control Board, they're going to have special shopkeepers liability, which the extra liability, or the extra insurance coverage that goes along with the service of alcohol. So there'll be a full indemnity agreement. So that McAllister's is assuming risk on this.
Assuming the risk of everything.
If they overserve someone and then that causes an issue, then that would be McAllister's responsibility. Correct.
Go ahead. You have a question?
No, nothing. All the people that are coming in, food trucks and this brewery we're inviting in, are paying a $100 fee to be here. So we would just give that back to them.
Sarah, I think that, a lot of us that attend the concerts in the parks, and those are lovely events, and we have the food trucks out there. I don't think it's a closely held secret that a lot of our community members may imbibe, have alcohol in their Stanley cups, and nobody's going around sniffing their Stanleys or their igloo thermoses.
Even red Solo cups. we've
Or
seen,
red
yeah.
Solo cups. So I don't think anybody's naive enough to think that nobody's drinking as it is. I think this is a way to kind of manage that, and maybe have, what I would encourage is maybe ask McAllister's to limit the alcohol content of some of the drafts that they may pour, so they're not some of the higher end barley wines with the alcohol by volume, and somebody may not, unintentionally find themselves impaired and unable to drive home. So maybe that would be a consideration.
Yeah,
in
we
this
did
pilot
talk about
program.
that, and I think we said 8% or lower you can serve at the event. So I think that would be good instead of the 12% stouts and things like that.
What exactly does McAllister serve?
They serve beer, wine. They serve alcohol as well. We're going to ask them just for their beer and wine that's under 8%. If they have wine that's under 8%, wine tends to go a little bit on the higher side with alcohol. But we're going to ask them to serve anything under 8%.
So they're not serving mixed drinks.
They're not serving mixed drinks, not at this event, no. No. And they are, to be fair, we have food trucks that are here. We have, for our carnival, we have the carnival company that comes in. They are a company, they are somebody who is in North Wales Borough. So we have not allowed any alcohol in our parks. So they have never asked because of that. So this is kind of a neat way to get them involved as well in the community.
Sarah,
What
I just
kinda-
want to qualify. I just want to get a fact straight. It was all 5 of us on the board who came up with Unity for Kindness.
Oh, I'm sorry. I apologize.
It's okay. I just wanted to get that clear for the record.
What kind of security or extra security do we foresee having to have because we're adding an alcohol?
Honestly, I don't think any extra security. We could talk with the chief. He is on board with this finally. And he may have a couple officers extra, but nothing crazy. We don't, I don't know. I don't foresee it being anything nuts. I just feel like it's not a late night thing. People are just there. They'll just have a beer or wine or a couple beers and wines and go on their way and enjoy their drink. We're serving food there too. So it's not like we're just having alcohol, dancing and we have a band. We have a Zydeco band that's going to be there as well. So there's a lot of ways for people to work the alcohol off if they do drink it. So I don't foresee a problem. That's why we're doing a pilot event, just to see if it'll work with this event. And I think this is a good event as opposed to the concerts. The concerts are at 7 p.m., 7 to 9 p.m. Who knows where people have come from at that point to the concerts. What do they bring themselves to the concerts? What are they drinking? If we have a beer truck at the concert. So I think this is a good.
And what you're asking is for this event only.
Just for this event only. So we created this permit, this exemption that only the township can ask for to include alcohol in events. Right now, we're starting with this event. Now, I'm not going to say I may not come back in next year and say, hey, can we do this event? But right now, it's just going to be the Unity for Kindness event in 2024.
So when you say we have to come back, it's the same policy, but it would be for Unity for Kindness. The next one would be for a concert or
Whatever. Yes. Yeah. It's a permit I'm going to be filling out. We'll give it to the chief. And I believe I have to write an action memo for all of you as well. So you'll know if we do this again.
Sarah, without putting words in your mouth, any lessons learned from this pilot, of course, would be noted and taken into consideration, I would imagine, at future events. So it wouldn't be necessarily the same exact thing. If there were things that maybe Chief Duffy or yourself, Sarah, or the commissioners thought, hey, we could have improved upon this in this way, or if there is some unintended consequence or risk, then we can modify as necessary.
Right.
So it may or may not be cookie cutter.
True. Thanks, Greg.
Okay.
Anything else? All right. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah.
Thanks for coming.
Next on the agenda, under President Carter's section for wastewater, we have the approval of the purchase of a Gator, a 2024 John Deere Gator in the amount of $22,742.55. We presently have 2 Gators that are used by our maintenance personnel in the wastewater treatment plant, and it's for collecting samples as well as getting around during any high flow events. Once we do have this new Gator, we would add a snow plow to that. That way we can use it for tight areas when we're snow plowing around the plant. And then one of the old Gators, we will repurpose that, and it will be used for our collection systems crew. And they usually will travel along the public right-of-ways, so that Gator will be repurposed for them to use as well. And then under other business, we'll have the approval of the March open and paid invoices. And that concludes the items on the agenda for next week.
Thank you, everyone, for coming out. Meeting's adjourned.